let's talk about business. And, well, let's talk about a good thing called chocolate. Chocolate, is there anything better on this earth? Well, actually, yes. If you ask my wife, pizza. If you ask... But it's really interesting, right? And let's talk about business and how this is a really good example of a business and how you as a business leader can actually fight against what's happening in your industry, fight against what's happening in your community, because God has called us to stand up, especially business people. I mentioned politics is an area, whatever area you're in, if you're in entertainment, fashion, wherever you are, God's called you to stand up and be a representation for him in there. But I'm a little bit impartial, and Dr. Rod being the business pastor, and I myself also being a business coach and loving business, I believe one of the greatest ways you can make an impact is business. And so it's actually really important how we as business owners can stand up. And I think that this story really emphasizes how we can fight against a system that is so against, and I don't want to say against us, but against our core values, against talking about values that will, with Governor Ron DeSantis. We are in a place where we are facing a lot of opposition, a lot of corporations, everything like that going woke. And we as Christian business people, and even if you're not Christian, if you're conservative, you are called to stand up. And let's talk about the Daily Wire and how they are actually combating I know you're thinking, well, hold on a second. What's Daily Wire? A conservative media agency. What have they got to do with chocolate? Well, I don't know if you noticed, but Hershey's released for National Women's Day a special chocolate bar that was, instead of called Hershey's, it was called Hershey. And working on this pronoun gender identification thing, and their spokesperson, I'm going to say, their spokesperson for International Women's Day was a man. Yeah, that's where this world has gone to. Crazy. And so obviously there's this transgender guy that is now identifying as she, and in response to this, Daily Wire have actually done really well to launch out in opportunities where they actually see, you know what, they've taken it too far. We're going to stand up for this. And so in response to Hershey's, you're doing this Hershey campaign, literally it seemed almost overnight, the Daily Wire launched their own chocolate bar, which in 36 hours sold more than 300,000 chocolate bars. Now that's saying something. Their advertising, you got to see the video. I think I linked the video. I will link the video below. If it's not there, I'll make sure it's there later. They've released two versions. One is for she, her, and he, him, and that he's quoted in the ad saying, "Only one of them has nuts, and you can be the decider." Actually, the quote is actually, if I need to tell you which one, you should keep buying Hershey's. So I think that this is great. I think that this is a great example of how businesses can actually make an impact. You know what? We stand up and we go, oh, there's this stuff that's happened that we don't agree with. Let's actually make a stand. Dr. Rob, what do you take on this somewhat comedic, tongue-in-cheek thing that has actually turned into a real thing?
Well, it does make me laugh a little bit. One, because the whole launch of Jeremy's chocolate bars
Yes.
was somewhat tongue in cheek, but on the other hand, these guys have got a brilliant business model. They
Yes.
tested that with Jeremy's razors. Some
Yes.
people might know about Jeremy's razors. That was a response to a company that made men's grooming products that used to sponsor the Daily Wire, but
Yep.
pulled out of their sponsorship because they had a disagreement over this kind of thing. And
Yep.
Jeremy Boring, who's co-CEO of the Daily Wire and a significant investor in the company, he launched his own brand, Jeremy's
Yep.
Razors, and they now offer a fairly extensive range of men's grooming products. And so this was a continuation of that brand. So from a business perspective, I think their strategy is absolutely brilliant because they are able to tap into what some people might call a niche market. I
Yep.
noticed on their website when I checked this morning that they've now sold 400,000 of
Wow.
their Jeremy's chocolate bars. It may be a lot higher than that because I don't know how often the website is updated.
Yep.
But I think they've managed to tap into something here. But of course, the serious note behind it all is that they disagree with the way in which biological women are being essentially discriminated against.
Yep.
And the very idea that Hershey's could have celebrated International Women's Day by using a transgender person to represent women, I think is, well, the kindest word I can say. It's wrong, wrong, wrong. Because look, if people want to be transgender, I can live with that.
Yep.
However, I am very, very concerned about the continuing evidence of how man hates women. And it
Yes.
goes right through human history. And I think it's about time that we took a stand against it. I hear reports daily about sporting codes. The latest one is international surfing, which is allowing biological males to compete against biological females. The only way in which this can be dealt with, I think, is to set up open classes in all sports
Yep.
where anybody who wants to compete can compete, but we should separate biological males and biological females. And I think one of the things that Daily Wire is doing is they're waving the flag for biological females, and I think that's right and proper.
Yep.
And they're also turning it into business profit, and I say good on them.
Yeah, I just think it's crazy how we speak about, or like they talk about the woke talk about how got to stand up for the marginalized and everything like that, and the white male is the oppressor, and they're the ones that are just taking everything, and yet they celebrate a white male taking away accolades from females, but they celebrate that, and it just, I think it almost speaks to, for me, ludicrous is a word that comes to mind, but it's just how I almost wonder whether this is trivial and obviously completely not theologically or biblically based or whatever, but it kind of like, I kind of see Satan sitting there going, let's see how far I can push it to see how they'll, like, what if I do this? They still don't recognize it. Oh, what if we do this? What if we make a male a female and make him the female, like, representative? And like, it's just ridiculous. And you're right. We do need to stand up. And like, the reason why I'm hesitating, I'm just wondering, I'm kind of about to go off on a tangent and about to go off like another way, but But as you say, we do need to stand up for this. It is actually ridiculous. We need to stand up for... Why do things get so ridiculous and yet still be accepted? Why is that?
Look, this will sound very simplistic, but we live in a fallen world, and we live in a particularly Western world where people don't care about God anymore.
Yeah.
And it's more so in Australia and most of Europe than it is in the United States. Just about any metric on Christian practice in Australia is about half what it is in America, and in Europe is about half what it is in Australia. So, it's probably worse here in many ways than it is in the United States. At least in the United States, somebody like Daily Wire and Jeremy Boring can actually do what they do. It would be much more difficult to do it here in Australia, and nearly impossible, if not impossible, to do it in Europe. And look, the Daily Wire itself was a reaction to the mainstream media, which simply wasn't. Look, there's very little news today. Most of it is opinion. And if you listen carefully to most news broadcasts, you will see that unnecessary adjectives are inserted into the news copy, which reveals the worldview of the people in the newsroom. And most of the time, it's not a Christian worldview. You can pick that up by the words that are used. I think I'm losing losing the plot here a little bit, because obviously we want to focus on leaders. But I think one of the leadership lessons that we can draw from this particular incident is that the team at the Daily Wire know what they stand for, and they're actually using what they stand for as a basis for building a sustainable business. And more power to them. That's what I'd say, more power to them. And I think it is possible to do this in America still, because there is more religious freedom there than there is in many other countries. Frankly, I don't know whether this is the case in America, but there are some unscientific principles being embedded even in legislation in Australia, mostly at this time at state government level. I've read some of that legislation, and I would say that it's indicative of the fact that certainly in terms of gender issues, we've moved into a post-scientific age where we deny that there are two and only two biological sexes, with some very rare exceptions that arise through genetic, if you like, fault, or there are
mutations
some people who are genuinely not biologically male nor female. And one would want any kind of medical intervention to make their lives livable
100%.
and enjoyable. We would want that. But the way in which we've moved, I think, is something which undoubtedly is precipitated by Satan, because it undermines the very basis of biblical living, which is based on marriage between a biological male and a biological female, to the exclusion of all others, and for life. So it undermines and this, look, if you look throughout human history, you will see that the family is the basis of a stable society. And I think that's all being undermined.
Going back to my original question about all this craziness, what do we do? I think that one thing you mentioned in there is they are not recognizing Christ, which, as we know, another word for Christ is truth. And I think that they are so, when you look at these things, like literally a biological male is celebrated as the spokesperson of International Women's Day. It is so untrue. It's so not the truth that I think it's obviously we know that Satan is the father of deception, right? And that's what we need to be aware of. And that's what he's doing. He's deceiving. He's putting on all this deception and just completely untruths. I think that makes us, it calls us to make sure we are truth, to make sure that we are the contrast to untruth. And in business, we have to do that in our dealings with how we report our taxes, how we deal with our suppliers, how we deal with our clients, how we deal with our team. We need to make sure that we are that true representation of truth, so that we can be a quite clear distinction between what seems so crazy and is being accepted. We need to represent the complete opposite to that, so that we can, in that way, it actually then almost highlights that, because we are representing truth. But unfortunately, you look out in the world and there's not too much representation of truth, of Jesus, of Christ, right? So thank you. Like that kind of inspired that little bit of rant, Dr. Rod. But actually, going back to the Daily Wire, I feel like one of the biggest lessons we can learn as business owners, and this is me, I'm trying to rally the troops right now, and I'm trying to encourage you as a business leader. The reason why the Daily Wire is able to start a men's grooming company and a chocolate brand, the only reason why they're able to do that is because they have money, right? They are successful in their business. So they have surplus money, they have surplus resources, as in time, team, everything like that, that they're able to go, that company's doing something wrong. You know what? We can do something about it because we have funding. I want to speak to you, business people, Christian business people, conservative business people. God has not called us to have poor businesses. God's called us to business to make money. The Bible says he has given us the ability to create wealth. That's what we do in business. And if we don't have a successful business where we have surplus money and surplus resources, how are we meant to fight against these things when we have the opportunity to? So I think that this is a great example of Daily Wire and their organization being able to identify the opportunities, but also they have the resources to do it. And so my encouragement to you as a business owner, be successful. Don't cower back. Be successful, but be successful not to make yourself rich. It's not about building up our storehouses, but we need to have some in our storehouses for these moments. We're not putting it in our storehouses for ourselves to sit back and do nothing. We're putting it in our storehouses to build, to use in moments when, you know what, there's a need, there's an opportunity, there's an impact that we can make. And so my encouragement to you as a business owner, be successful. Do whatever you can. Get a coach. Do the right marketing. Charge out. Do the research. Look on YouTube. There's so much free resources out there to help you build your business. Build your business. Make money so that you can actually make the impact when you have the time to make the impact. Hey, you just watched an excerpt from our On the Cube Leadership podcast. If you'd like to see the full episodes, check out our YouTube channel and consider subscribing.